Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Welcome back to another episode of the Work From Home Show. I'm Naresh with Adam, and we have Martha with us. Her name is Martha Alderson, and Martha is the #1 best-selling author of the book, Writing Deep Scenes, Plotting Your Story Through Action, Emotion, and Theme, and also the author of the new book, Boundless Creativity, a spiritual workbook for overcoming self-doubt, emotional traps, and other creative blocks. The reason why we brought Martha on the show today is because I myself am an author, and I've written all of my books from home, working from home. We are the Work From Home Show. We've already had a couple of episodes on writing and publishing and books and publishing books, writing books. And Martha is someone who actually writes about these topics, specifically as it relates to writing and being creative while you're at home. So without further ado, Martha, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
I want to start this discussion by talking about creativity. What are your tips to all of our homies, as we call them? What are your tips to our homies on how they can live their best, most creative lives while at home?
Okay, well, let me just clear up one thing, is that the best-selling book is The Plot Whisperer, Secrets of Story Structure Any Writer Can Master. I mean, I did write the Writing Deep Scenes, but it didn't do, The Plot Whisperer was the one that was sort of my breakthrough book. Okay, so to talk about being creative, so as the plot whisperer, which is what I'm known in writing circles, and so because every novel, memoir, screenplay needs a plot, I end up working with lots and lots of writers worldwide. And what I find is the greatest thing that two things that interfere with creativity and writers in particular, well, probably all creatives, but one is not knowing the craft, and so sort of experiencing challenges as they learn more about, how to structure a story, plot, how to convey emotions, and if they're doing nonfiction, how to set up a book so that it's pleasing to the reader and to publishers, or if you're independently publishing, to your future readers. But the bigger, more sort of deadly setback for writers and creatives in general when it comes to creativity is the internal opposition that we meet up with, especially working at home, where we might not have a lot of support and we're going it alone, is, our emotional traps that we have, the self-doubt that we experience, the things that we say to ourselves about not being worthy enough or creative enough or smart enough or worthy enough, whatever it happens to be. And that can really interfere with some really brilliant people who are trying to put forth whatever their creative medium is, that they give up before they've gone the distance because of these sort of internal demons of just feeling like maybe they just can't do it. And that's why I wrote my workbook, Boundless Creativity, because I wanted to support all creatives to be able to understand why they're experiencing what they're experiencing, that it's a natural, normal part of the creative process, and how to overcome these internal demons.
A lot of people whenever you talk about creativity, they kind of say the arts are, in a lot of ways, the arts are dead because they don't really teach them in school. A lot of times, whenever you've been working in the corporate world, it's kind of sort of beaten out of you in a lot of places, and people get home and they're just shot. They can't mentally think about it. How can you kind of rejuvenate yourself and start thinking and writing and doing creative things?
Well, I think that we're born to be creators. I mean, that's what we do every day, whether you see, the mundane sort of banal things that you do on a day-to-day basis. Lots of what that encompasses is creativity, and your own unique expression. So I think that we have to just be able to understand that this is what we're hardwired for, is to be creative, and to also understand that when you're in the creative flow and you have, sort of allowed yourself the time, you might be tired, but you pick yourself up and go in to write a piece or draw or, do whatever it is that your creative expression entails, and you're in the zone, it's a really magical place to be, because time and place sort of disappear. You are one with the creative source, whatever that is, and you're in the moment. And it's worth making time for and setting up your life around, because of the benefits that you get from it. And, not to mention that what you create could actually change the world. But in the short term, it really is, being creative is, you get more benefit out of it than probably anything else you might do in life.
Yeah, I completely agree. As an entrepreneur, a business person, an author, creativity, it's not just the profit or the money that you can make, but really the impact that you can have is wide ranging. And so as far as creativity goes during this pandemic, yes, the economies are opening back up, but people are still very afraid to go outside. This is certainly a new abnormal. With regard to children, kids at home who are now at home for the summer or the fall, or being forced to being homeschooled, what are your tips on how parents can maybe do some exercises or help improve the creativity in their children?
Well, let me back up for just a minute on something that you said just a little while ago. And that is about, that creativity can bring you more than money or success. I think it's really important to understand that when you're looking at being creative as a source of financial gain or recognition, that becomes an ego pursuit. Mm-hmm. And you can really get sort of, a lot of obstacles and roadblocks, because, if you can go into creativity for the pure pleasure of it and hope for a great outcome, but if you're really looking just toward that sort of ego gratification or financial gain, your chances of running up against a lot of obstacles and barriers are really great. But we can talk more about that later if you want. Anyway, so with children, I think that children are just innately creative. They have this, passion to play in the dirt, to finger paint, to build things, to wreck things, to do whatever it takes when they're very, very young. And I think that because they are so young and they haven't yet met with a lot of, oh, you can't do it. Oh, color between the lines. Oh, that doesn't look very good. That's not acceptable, or whatever. They're so much freer. There aren't these internal voices that are saying, I'm not good enough. And so my number one passion is to really support children and allow them to be creative without your interference. In other words, to be able to allow free access to whatever, tools or supplies they need to be creative, make a space for them that's a safe space where they can create to their heart's content without feeling that they have to, draw me a horse, or, mold that clay into, whatever, a monster. But to allow them to decide. They have the creative promise. And, some kids may ask for direction, but if you give them enough time, they will start to create on their own, and to allow that to be enough. And we might end up raising, a generation of entrepreneurs who can innovate on a different level because they're not as stymied by some of this internal and external expectation that is being sort of layered on us as we get older.
Yeah, and you bring up an excellent point, going back to the whole profit-seeking motive, and it's really a principle that I've lived by, and I find it very difficult to work with clients who are like, oh, I want to write a book because I need to make income, or I want to start a podcast because I need to make X amount of dollars in order to, meet this new expense that just popped up. Or I need to, create a piece of art in order to pay this bill. And we did a previous episode where I talked about, it was all about book writing and blogging. And I said, look, if you're going to be starting, if you want to write a book or create a blog just to make a quick buck, you're going to be sadly disappointed. If that's your goal, if that's your goal, just don't even do it. Just forget about it. And the same goes for starting a business. If you want to start a business because you think all of a sudden you're going to become a millionaire overnight, or even a millionaire within 5 years, again, you're going to be sadly disappointed. You've got to really dig deep down inside and do things because either because you're passionate about it, or because it's what gets you up in the morning and motivates you. Yeah. It can't be the money. And this, spiritually or religiously speaking, in my religion of Hinduism, we have something called the law of dharma. Mm-hmm. And that basically says that you live life to the fullest without worrying about the results, without worrying about the material things or the results or anything. It's really about the journey. The purpose of the journey is a journey itself. And I think that's absolutely applicable to what you talk about when it comes to creativity and writing.
Yes, because I think that when you're doing it for these external reasons and not from your heart, or what you were saying, your passion, there's something about the whole creative process that shifts, and it doesn't resonate. It doesn't have the energetic power that it has when you are just in the moment. Like you said, you jump out of bed, you just can't wait to write that next scene, or find out, how you're going to figure out how to put shadow in the portrait that you're painting or whatever. And I do really believe that when you come at it from that point of view, you are rewarded, because the only way that anything can be manifested in the physical sense is through us. So if there is, a muse or this creative energy, or, the energetic force out there that wants something to manifest, it has to come through us. And I think the more that we do it with that feeling of excitement and open-heartedness, the more I think we're gifted with inspiration, imagination, these hits of, I'm going to try this or that, and where you just don't even have enough time to fulfill all these promises that you're being offered, because they're just coming at you. And that's just a fantastic way to live. I mean, I can't support that enough.
Yeah, and talking about this podcast, this show, I had a friend contact me last week, and he said, "Hey, I've been listening to your show. It's great. How are the listens doing? How many listeners?" And he said, "What's your goal? Like, as far as listenership goes, what's your goal? How many listeners do you want to have?" And to me, that's just the wrong mindset. Look, he's a friend of mine. I love him, but it's the wrong mindset to have. I don't want to say it's a bad question, but it's the wrong mindset to have when you're approaching anything in life. And so I responded back to him. I gave him the true answer, kind of like what we're talking about right now. But I also gave him kind of the snarky answer. And I said, the goal is to have 1 billion listeners and trillions of dollars in revenue. Because that's just, why are you putting a box on, how many listeners you want to have? I mean, who says that I even started this podcast to get listeners? Like, maybe I started it because because for my own personal, I feel like I have a message to share.
Yeah, we want our listeners, we want as many listeners as need to listen to the show.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that we set ourselves up for failure when we, when you have expectations that are not even unrealistic, but just expectations. Like, I'm doing this because I expect this kind of an outcome. I think we set ourselves up for a fall because, you by expecting, you get hurt. When you're accepting and you're just accepting what comes, because, there's so many people that just get so depressed because they don't have enough friends on social media, or not enough people have visited their blog or whatever. And that really hurts the creative process because it hurts your heart. It doesn't allow you to just trust that the timing is going to happen. Whatever it is, you're going to get what you need. There will be enough money. You'll have enough followers. All you need to do is to show up and do your work with passion.
Yeah, so one of the things when we were talking, when Naresh was asking about the kids and helping them with creativity, and Naresh, you might know who this person is, but when I homeschool my kids, and whenever we were starting to do more art stuff, I've always considered myself, I've always thought, oh, I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to do this. And so we started doing this thing with Mark Kistler, who, Naresh, you might know from Houston. He was Commander Mark on PBS. And, we started watching YouTube videos together, and we started looking at his books. And I was realizing while my kids were learning how to do this stuff, that I was enjoying it as well. And it was helping me. And I realized that, well, I'm not the greatest artist in the world. I was enjoying it. So how can people kind of get over that initial hump of, you talk about in your book about overcoming self-doubt and creative blocks. What's the first step for people? Is it just get out of your own head, or how do you start that process?
Well, I think the first step is to become conscious of what you're saying to yourself. Like what you just said, I might not be the greatest. Well, even that is sort of a qualifier. Like, doesn't matter if you're the greatest or not, you're enjoying it. And that's the most important part. So I think first step, people have to be conscious of what they're saying to themselves and be vigilant about that. How often they say, I'm not a very good drawer. I don't know how to draw. I work with people who say, well, I don't even have an imagination. How can I write a story without an imagination? So by having those messages that we're saying to ourselves, we then need to rewire our brain, because we've said those things likely, hundreds of times in one form or another, of not being good enough to be able to do whatever it is we want to do. And so I'm really into, affirmations, to being able to say twice as many times as you've said the negative, to say the positive, and to encourage yourself and to believe in yourself, even if you don't. Even if at the beginning it feels so false and you're rolling your eyes and thinking, this is ridiculous. You've said it so many times the negative way. That's the story you've made up. It's not reality. It's just what you've created and you're now living by. We live by the flaws that we've created in ourselves. And then we're always being offered opportunities to overcome those flaws that we've developed, or those messages that we've been saying to ourselves. But first we have to be conscious of it. And then we have to try to rewire our brain. And then we have to show up and just believe, and have faith, because it is your birthright. I really truly believe we are all creators, and it's our birthright to be creative.
Yeah, and talking about this process, there's a well-known phrase or hashtag called trust the process. Yeah. And that's what I've been kind of, I've been living that way even before this hashtag was invented. But look, trusting the process, you're going to find yourself lonely, because other people are going to be like, oh, what are you doing? Like, why are you creating this piece of art? Like, why, oh, you're writing this book? Like, what? I remember a friend of mine, he's a doctor, a radiologist. And so, like he does very well financially. And he took about a month. Took about a month to start outlining a book, and his radiology friends were like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? Like, what's the point in doing that? And he was just trusting the process. Now, he ended up giving up and he didn't follow through. But the point that I'm making is that when you believe in something and deep down you feel like, I need to get this message out, I need to get this piece of art out, you're going to have so many people coming your way saying, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? Like, what is this? What are you going to accomplish by this?
But I also believe that we have attracted those people into our lives by the beliefs that we carry about ourselves. And so we populate our lives with people who are going to reinforce the same beliefs that we have. And once you become aware of that these people that are saying those things are actually just mirrors of what you're saying to yourself. And so as you start to overcome some of these self-doubts and these negative, limiting beliefs and the things that you're saying to yourself, you'll start to realize that the people that start to surround you will shift. And you'll start to let go of people who don't believe in you, who are negative, who are, saying, but those were the things that you said too. And that's why you guys got together. And so once you start to shift, it's really, it can be lonely because you're going to lose some people that you've had in your life, maybe for a long time. And yet you have to, again, trust the process, that those people that are going to support you and going to benefit your journey are going to start to appear.
Yeah. And those people, like you said, these are people who you've probably had in your life for a long time, for, high school, college, even going all the way back to childhood. So that's what makes it somewhat difficult, because while you're branching out and trying to pursue whatever it is that you want to pursue, that's not in line with, how your friendship or how your relationship was 20 years ago when you were 5 years old. And
because so you had a contract. I'm going to live this limited life and you're going to live your limited life. And once you start to move outside of that contract, it's threatening to the other person, because then they have to look at their lives. And if they don't belittle you, they're going to have to belittle themselves. And so, of course, there's going to start to be friction. And it takes, but the thing that I really believe in is that creativity itself is the greatest friend and supporter and thing to have in your life. And that really, it can fill up loneliness. It can shift depression. It can, open up avenues for expression so that there isn't so much anger in your life. Anyway, I do go on and on. Sorry.
Now, you wrote an article on your website. It's called Who Thrives and Who Falters During Sequester. And you talked about finding your fundamental temperament and also about venturing inward. Can you talk a little bit about that as people are dealing with and coming out of this time where we have been sequestered?
Sure. So people that are basically introverted or, quiet, shy people, this, it's like they've been, you hear this a lot, but they've been training their whole life for this, being inside, being alone, not going out, not shopping, not meeting up with friends or whatever is almost a relief. Because they can be in this environment of solitude that feels very affirming and lifts them up, gives them energy, and makes them feel at peace with themselves. If you're really introverted, being out in the public and having to interact and be social can be really painful. And some of us are, forced to learn how to change that, by having to be more social, but it's counterintuitive. It's not really what your basic makeup is. But for the people that are more extroverted, that really thrive when they are around other people and they love to have family over and to, create situations where they can bring lots of people together and, be in social situations, they're really, a lot of them are struggling now because they don't have that feedback and that energy and that, source of comfort where they can be in the limelight or, connect different people together and feel like they've done something wonderful in doing that. And that becomes more challenging. And yet I think for all of us, this has been a really fascinating time to go inward, to be quiet. We've all been going so fast. I know of one of my neighbors who commutes, 2 hours a day, every day. She's a single mom. And to think about the amount of energy she expends just to, create a living. And she just thrived during this time of being what we call in California sheltering at home or sheltering in place. And she learned how to cook. She was learning Spanish. She got really close to her daughter in a way that she hadn't had a chance to before. And she really went inward and found out what she wants to do in life, what she's not going to do anymore. And it's given everybody, unless you're really struggling. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are struggling to put food on the table and, and our essential workers that are out there every day putting their lives on the line for us. But for those of us who are at home and we're, able to do that with some sort of grace, it has given us a chance to really reevaluate what life is all about for us. And I'm just so curious to see the long-term effect of this because I think it's going to be profound.
Talking about one issue that I hear a lot, and that is, I'm sure you've heard this, people saying, oh, I don't have any inspiration. Like I'm just sitting in front of my computer and I don't know what to say. Like I need some type of inspiration. And I've heard other people even say that they need like a hardship, something bad to happen in order for them to spur creativity, like negative thoughts or some type of hardship. Do you really think negative thoughts or hardship spur creativity?
Well, I know more people that journal about the bad things that have happened to them than they journal about the positive things. And I also know that if you have experienced a lot of hardship, lots of times you need a creative outlet to be able to process that information and bring some sort of light to the darkness that you've experienced. And I also think sometimes that if you have really had misfortunes or have been judged harshly or there's not a lot of expectation for you. Oh, you're never going to amount to anything. Oh, you're not smart enough. Oh, why are you even doing that? That's ridiculous. Is that then something within us inspires us to prove them wrong. It's like you get an energetic surge of, oh, I'll show you. And that can be a really positive, powerful thing. But I think that, too much negativity means that what you're going to create will be dark, probably. And for those who sit in front of a blank page, wanting to write a story or wanting to write a nonfiction book or whatever, if you can just find your strength, if you're stronger, sort of left brain with that linear, logical sort of mentality, make a plan. I talk about the universal story, plot out a plan of this is what I'm going to do. These are the things I'm going to, the classes, or I'm going to go on the internet, or I'm going to go on YouTube or whatever to learn what, or take a class and be sort of guided into a creative pursuit. And if you're more right-brained, generative and emotional and all of that, likely you will be able to access your creativity in a unique way. But I think the big thing is just to try all different mediums. Rather than sitting in front of a computer, if that's not doing anything for you, get a pad of paper and sketch something. Go out if you can, and try to find some kind of nature. That's one of the best inspirations there is. And if you can't go out, then look for it on the internet, some beautiful, quiet pictures of nature, of, I live at the beach. The ocean really does a lot to inspire creativity. And, or if that doesn't work, try cooking, try creating some kind of a recipe, or redecorate a room in your house, or, just keep trying. And every time you try and you take it to completion, whether it's what you thought it would be, or you are still having some negative self-talk and you say, oh, this isn't very good. The next time you do it, it's going to be easier. Each time you start, and not stop, but start and take it all the way through to the end, you become more powerful and more confident in yourself to go the distance, and you will be rewarded.
All right, that was Martha Alderson, best-selling author of Writing Deep Scenes, Plotting Your Story Through Action, Emotion, and Theme, and the new book, Boundless Creativity, a spiritual workbook for overcoming self-doubt, emotional traps, and other creative blocks. Check her out at marthaalderson.com. That's marthaalderson.com, ALDERSON. Check us out at workfromhomeshow.com. That's workfromhomeshow.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, send them to us, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. That's hello@workfromhomeshow.com. And until next time, keep on working from home.